Hello, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, my fellow citizens. Tonight we read an article about Boeing has a serious problem and the solution will baffle you, or it's baffling them. Well, it's very easy to tell you. My name is Daryl Guberman. I am the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We also do ISO certification, accreditation, and we assist in all ISO derivatives, whether it's 9001, ISO 1345, or AS 9100 for aerospace. I'm not going to get into the nuances and everything else, but I'm going to tell you why the problem is so pervasive. And so disgusting. Boeing formed a monopoly. Yes, years ago they did. And it started more than probably 20, 30 years ago. And it's absolutely deplorable. Boeing sits on the American National Standards Institute and the American National Accreditation Boards. They are board members, and they're board members, board of directors, and also the board on ANAB that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certifications of registrars, which I'd never seen in my 40 years. They also came out with a supplier bulletin in 2002 that mandates ANSI ANAB as the accreditation body for your AS 9100 certification. I'm not going to go into too much detail, so I'm going to keep it simple for you, ladies and gentlemen. What that bulletin said is it says send in an AS 9100 certificate as long as it's ANSI ANAB accredited. Why? Because as I showed you, Boeing, or told you that Boeing sits on the board, control, and send in your certificate, send in your part, and Boeing does not have to send any on-site inspectors. A piece of paper is being judged for quality. That's baffling, without a doubt. Although it's cost-cutting initiative so that this guy back here can get another performance bonus. In 2009, well, also let me just tell you this. So we took care of that. ANSI, ANAB, Boeing sits on the boards, okay? They just don't sit on there. They're active members. Also, in 2002, they came out with that supplier portal item, or a supplier bulletin that says must be ANSI, ANAB. Send us your certificate. Send us your parts, and Boeing doesn't have to come do an on-site audit. On top of it, number 3, on their supplier portal, it mandates that you have to be ANSI, ANAB, or international equivalent. Baffling? Isn't baffling yet? What's baffling? It's coming up. Boeing was made an FAA regulator. Here it is. Here's the actual article in 2009. What it states is the FAA increased the authority of Boeing's commercial airplanes division to self-certify its own aircraft. And this is where MCAS comes in, because these guys are trying to pull the bullshit over our eyes. By the way, that's a quality term. Or let me just use, you know what I want to do? I'm going to use, after I get done with this, I want to use Patrick Shanahan's terms that he used for the F-35's program when he was Deputy Secretary of Defense with Donald Trump. That'll be down below too in the description. You can't make this up. It states this. Authority extended to Boeing under the new system allows Boeing employees to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight of testing and product standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies, that's MCAS, and new aircraft designs, which means Boeing did not have to tell the FAA anything because they are the FAA. So you have David Mullenberg, I always get them confused. But anyway, you have David Calhoun, right? In 2019, when he took over from Dennis Mullenberg, he was an FAA administrator because the FAA had made them a regulator back in 2009. So let me ask you a poignant question here. How can one regulator watch over another regulator? Now the government's going to get together and really fuck it up. Hold on a sec. Let me just tell you this. When Patrick Shanahan over here, who's now the CEO of Spirit Aerospace Systems, he's got 30 plus years at Boeing, so he took over Spirit Aerosystems after he got out of being Deputy Secretary of Defense. He was asked about that program, about the F-35. He said, Patrick Shanahan, how is the F-35 program? He said, it's fucked up. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you another thing that came out. It's not just fucked up, not the program. the aircraft. After their 801st aircraft, they're still producing aircraft that has a problem. That could be loss of aircraft and loss of pilot. So today, it's not baffling. They're giving out, the FAA gave them authority, the Boeing gave their suppliers authority with their quality certificate because they sit on the board. That's not baffling. That's bullshitting. You have organizations, you have the FBI that sits on board. We have poor Christopher Wray. I laugh every time I watch this guy. Unbelievable. You should have a dunce cap on because he says, we must maintain vigilance over China. Yet between 2015 and 2021, the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum, which is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies, is, was watched over by communist China. This guy who's watched over was been involved with our quality since 1994. Doesn't anybody realize, like in the 1940s and 50s, when the Russians were big, the communists, and they were coming over into our military contractors? In fact, I understand with Rolls-Royce, a Russian guy came into Rolls-Royce and he had rubber shoes on, very soft gummy rubber, and he walked through the machine shop and he picked up the metal chips and he went back to Russia and they analyzed them so that they could build a jet engine just like Rolls-Royce. Isn't that nice? Nowadays, we give them the information. But I just want to leave it here. I think I've given you enough information being baffled. It's not baffled. Sitting on ANSI's board, FBI, FDA, FAA, CDC, NIH, Securities and Exchange Commission, EPA, FTC. You have corporations like Boeing that is fudge documentation 2017 when they're our FAA regulator. Most recently, they're a composite facility that makes the Bell Boeing composite parts for the V-22 Osprey. They got caught fudging documentation from 2007 to 2018, $8.1 million in fine from the DOJ. The DOJ sits on ANSI's board. You have the poor NTSB woman who was asking for documentation and the Boeing refused. Why? Because they're an FAA regulator. They don't have to give the NTSB anything. So nobody knows this out there. The news media is squashing this. They're trying to suppress this information. Think about it. You're sitting on a plane that you don't know whether those parts were source inspected. They weren't, from what Boeing supplier bulletin said, since 2002. And the poor Ethiopian and poor Indonesian planes that went down, and their lawyers didn't do a good job. I've read their briefs. They didn't look deeper. ANSI and ANAP are underwriters for the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, which, again, it is a repository for national and international accreditation bodies. They're an underwriter for that. And we have a government contract. We've shown it on many videos before. We have a lot. And then they're also an underwriter for the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia, and both IAF and ILAC are sister organizations. Isn't that a tender moment in a failing aircraft industry? My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. As Confucius said, it is not the droplet of water that wears away the mighty stone, but it is its persistence. David Calhoun was interviewed and he was asked about escapes. He had no clue. You'll find all these videos on my YouTube channel. You're going to find a lot of data below this video, and I thank you.